Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Dr. Digital, and today we're going to be covering the top 10 dinos that are the most useful in Ark Survival Ascended. This is going to be specifically for the island. I want to make a little announcement, or just want to say something really quick before the video starts. Back to regular uploads, I got a new graphics card. My last one was not able to run Ark Ascended after Scorched Earth came out. So here we are, new graphics card. Game will look better, and let's just get straight into it, right? So number 10 is going to be the anglerfish. Now, this one might be a little bit odd for some people, but I find that the anglerfish is even more important on Ascended than it was on the on Ark Survival Evolved. This is because silica pearls are way harder to find. You can't really level movement speed, so traveling in water as just your player is really dangerous. And if you're going to be on a mount anyways gathering silica pearls, you might as well do it with a creature that just harvests them directly, right? So, pretty short and simple. You need silica pearls for everything electronics related, especially for PvP. You're going to need a ton of turrets, a ton of generators, etc., right? So, having a source of silica pearls is incredibly important, especially since there aren't any tech creatures on the map. So, that's number 10, and that will be the anglerfish. Alright, so here are the top 9. Now, I have them in kind of somewhat of an order, but realistically you can interchange a lot of these depending on where you find them more useful or what parts of the game you kind of struggle with, and figure which one of these would help more. But let's just get straight into the kind of formation I have them in here. So number 9, we have the Daedon. Let me get them in a little bit of better light here. There we go. So the Daedon is incredibly useful for bosses. Now, a lot of people know how useful they are for bosses, right? You can just bring them into a boss fight and it'll help you survive the boss fight. It's also useful after the boss fight, so you can go back into another boss fight. Now, useful little tip is you can actually fill the Daedon's inventory completely full with food, fly out of render, come back, it'll be completely full, and then you'll be able to heal everything once again, right? So you can just have a couple Daedons with a bunch of feeding troughs outside of a obelisk, and you can just go back and back and back and completely farm certain bosses. So the Daedon is very, very good for that. Now, another feature that's pretty important in my opinion is the fact that certain creatures like wyverns need wyvern milk, right? And while they are starving, they lose health. So the Daedon is a good way to combat health loss while you're going out to gather, wyvern milk, or maybe even just a meat run for your carnivores that you're raising. It makes it really easy to breed dinos. You can just keep the babies topped up if you're out of resources. It just makes the whole process of raising creatures much safer. So there you go, there's the Daedon. Now, to pair with the Daedon, obviously we have the Uranus, and just like the Daedon, it is insanely useful for boss fights. It increases their damage, or it reduces their damage taken, increases the damage done, and it is just a huge buff, and you only need to bring one in, which is honestly just amazing. And there's 2 other uses for it that some people kind of overlook. For base defense on PvP, you can use a Uranus to buff up your defending creatures to make it harder to raid. And on top of that, they lay the best eggs for the best kibble. So you can just make a whole breed line of Uranuses and just pick up the eggs that they passively produce for kibble. Or if you need it to be kind of expedited, you need it a little bit faster, you just go ahead and breed them and you get a ton of eggs. So the Uranus is perfect because you can basically use only Uranuses for all of your taming needs, kibble-wise anyways. Alright, next we're going to talk about the Megatherium. Now, the Megatherium's here for kind of an interesting reason, because the Megatherium allows you to get your foot into tech really easy. Like, you can start off day 1, tame maybe 5-10 Megatheriums, breed them up, loot some swamp caves, maybe some other caves, which you can do with the Megatherium. The Megatherium is really good for swamp cave. And then if you end up getting a Megatherium saddle blueprint, you could, in theory, do the Broodmother day 1. It's honestly relatively easy. You pair Megatherium up with the Uranus, and they will actually completely shred even up to the Alpha Broodmother without having like a proper breed line for them. So that's just something to keep in mind. Other than that, there's not really much to talk about. they're a very useful creature to get your foot into tech, right? You just, day one, maybe first weekend, you can get tech. Next, we're going to talk about the Therizino. Now, the Therizino, honestly, the Therizino is your jack-of-all-trades creature. It gathers meat very efficiently. It gathers hide relatively efficiently. It gathers even silica pearls and black pearls from the Euryptrids on Ragnarok, which isn't out yet, but once it is out, you can actually even farm black pearls with Therizinos, which is crazy. They're insanely good at gathering fiber and then really rare materials like rare mushrooms and rare flowers, which you could get on the swamp or you could get near the waterfall on the island. Just really amazing creature, and it sometimes goes overlooked by certain players, and I feel like everybody should own a Therizino. And on top of all of that, it has this passive leveling feature, so let's go ahead and throw a point into health here, right? Now if we open up this menu to the right here, harvesting levels, so I can make it gather even more of a specific resource, like wood or fiber, which is honestly really amazing. And not only that, it is technically the best creature to take out the dragon, which is considered to be one of the harder bosses in all of Ark, not even just the island. So the reason it's so good is because the dragon has a fire breath attack that deals percent-based damage, which it does less to herbivores, and as well, the Therizino can also eat veggie cakes to like regen a ton of health all in one go, which kind of offsets the percent-based damage, obviously. And then on top of that, the Therizino has an incredibly high melee, even outputting higher damage than a Rex. So the Therizino is definitely like an amazing creature you need to keep an eye out for. Next up here is going to be the Baryonyx. Now the Baryonyx is a creature I have not used super much. Like I have not used it too much, but it is for me like a really easy way to do a lot of the caves. Now you can bring a Baryonyx into every cave. It's like small enough to enter every cave, and I would suggest it for every cave except for the hard underwater cave and the ice cave. Every other cave for the Baryonyx is honestly pretty free game. You just go in with a Baryonyx, and if you're in a water cave, it has a stun attack, which means creatures won't even be able to attack you, which is really nice. And if you feed the Baryonyx fish meat, it regens an insane amount of health, which means you can go from one cave to another, just keep repeating these caves to farm up the artifacts, which makes the Baryonyx honestly a really good creature. Alright, next up we're going to talk about the Rhinignatha, which is actually a relatively new creature. It was the last creature to be introduced into Ark Survival Evolved, so some people may not even know this creature exists. But if you aren't aware, let's go ahead and describe why this creature is a menace. And it's for one single reason. For PvP purposes, being able to carry a Rex... Oh, I didn't want to land. Being able to carry a Rex is kind of insane. You can carry a ton of creatures with this. It has a firing mode, it has an armor mode, so as you can imagine, it's relatively good for PvP as well. Let's go ahead and just drop this guy. It also has a taunt. You can pick up structures as well, so you could, let's say you're raiding, you have a vault with a bunch of gear. You can just pick up that vault and bring it back to your base when you're done with the raid, instead of having to travel back and forth with a bunch of RGs or whatever creature you're using to travel back and forth with. You can just pick everything up with the Rhinignatha, and there you go. You're just completely scot-free out of the area, and it's just honestly an amazing creature. Its taming method is pretty fun. It's honestly just or annoying, depending on who you ask. But it's honestly a really amazing creature, and it's also strong. Has a pretty good health pool, like 8,000 health is nothing to scoff at. And yeah, so I would definitely suggest taking a look at the Rhinignatha. Alright, now we're in the top 3 here. This can all be interchanged, but I think the number 1 spot will be a pretty common spot for a majority of players. But let's just get into the Rex. Now, what does the Rex do that I can't really like? That's just, it's so obvious, right? It's a bulky, high damage creature. It gathers an insane amount of meat and hide. Only like the only thing that gathers more is like a Karcha and a Giga, and a Rex is infinitely easier to tame / breed, so it's just an amazing creature. And I did talk about all these other boss creatures, So the Therizino and the Megatherium. But realistically, you could do every boss with just a Rex. Now, for certain bosses, a Rex line would probably be needed. Because a Rex can't really do the Broodmother as easily as a Megatherium, and the Rex can't do the Dragon as easily as a Therizino can, because it takes more damage and there's no access to veggie kicks, right? So you do have to breed them to get them a little bit higher, but if you want a general purpose boss dino, the Rex is perfectly fine. And what happened here? But I was just gonna say that about covers it for the Rex. So basically just an amazing creature for bosses, and something you should definitely think of considering. Alright guys, we're back after being so rudely interrupted, and the next creature we're going to talk about here is going to be the Anki. Now, I cannot understate how important metal is, and just the fact that this is a creature that has a weight reduction and gathers an insane amount of metal is basically enough said, right? So I could look in the engrams here, we could scroll down. Basically anything past like level 30 is gonna need metal, right? Even at level 29 we start metal spike walls, spear bolts. Level 30 metal tools, level 31 metal traps. You need metal for saddles, you need metal for generally. If I just keep scrolling down here, I think almost at every single level we're gonna have something that requires metal, right? So metal is incredibly important, and it is the most useful resource in the game. And again, the Anki gathers an insane amount of it and has weight reduction on it, which is really good. Now on top of that, the Anki also outputs a lot of damage. So it's very easily defendable. Like if you're doing a metal run with an Anki and an RG, you can just kind of let the Anki beat up on like a Rex even that is trying to, you know, trying to eat you. And it's like the Anki is really strong. It actually does a lot of melee damage. Obviously you're not going to use it for anything like that, like you're not going to use it for PvP or for anything like that, but it can handle its own against wild creatures as long as it's not like a Giga or a Karcha, obviously. And last but not least, the Argentavis. Big surprise to no one, an Argentavis is an absolutely powerful creature with, you know, tons of reasons to tame. First of all, its saddle is a smithy. Second, it has, you know, an insane weight pool. It can carry a lot of useful creatures. So like a lot of your early game harvesting creatures like Ankis, Doeds, Beavers, and it can even carry like some crazy things like Thylas. But it allows you to carry basically any creature that's good at gathering resources, and obviously having a RG with a resource gathering creature is a perfect pair, and it really like speeds up your progression having an RG, because you can go out, you can do these giant farming runs, come back, and then have almost enough to satiate your base for the entire playthrough of the game. And it's really amazing. It also regens stamina and health when it consumes a corpse, which means it can stay airborne than a lot of other flyers as well. And it is honestly just an amazing creature. It even has good tankiness, good, you know, damage. You can use it to kill alphas. Honestly, probably the most useful, and will probably remain the most useful creature forever. I can't really imagine them doing another creature that's so easily and readily available and is just so good at what it does. But anyways, that's going to be the top 10 Arc useful dinos on, you know, the island. We'll make one for Scorched Earth in a couple days here. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.